listener-supported.
Nieto was killed by the San Francisco Police Department.
Hello, welcome back.
Remember radio.
Radio Valencia, wax, crackle, pop.
It's Tuesday, it's noon, we're here at mutinyradio.fm. Really excited today. I have a special guest in the studio. So you're here today to ask me about community radio,
Yes.
about mutinyradio.fm and what we do here.
Community radio is kind of an amorphous concept. It means a lot of different things to different people. So it could mean interviewing lots of people in the community. It could mean focusing on, if you're a music station, focusing on local bands. It could mean just serving underserved populations.
It's quite an exciting time for community radio in the Bay Area, albeit mostly online. And I wish that we all could be on the terrestrial dial, because I feel like there's so many people we're still not reaching.
I feel like community radio is everything, and I'm obviously biased, but I feel like it's the even playing ground.
The Poor People's Radio got started in June of '73. Just a group of people who didn't have any money, but they had a radio station, and they were able to put news and information and music that you don't hear on other stations out over the radio. So they just got together and say, hey, we're poor, this is Poor People's Radio, radio for poor people.
Phoebe has decided to make a short documentary about radio. So she's here today to capture what we're trying to do here.
I think our service of community radio at Radio Valencia is, in a sense, it's the larger community of people who listen to music that isn't served by other means.
We're a community of DJs that are dues-based membership. Everybody pays. It's a pay-to-play model. And we all get to share this wonderful space.
KUSF was on 90.3 FM since 1977. And on a very sad January day in 2011, without any of us knowing about it and behind the community's back, our transmitter was shut off in the middle of one of our DJ songs, and we found out that we had been sold and we were no longer going to be on 90.3. So as we launched a fight against the sale at the FCC, we also decided to build our own studio over here in the Bayshore and launch KUSF in Exile, to be online as a way to kind of spread the message about the effort to save KUSF, and also to get back to what we care about, which is producing community radio.
Because the radio band is limited, again, from 88 to 108 megahertz in the FM and 5.3 to 16 kilohertz in the AM, you can only fit so many stations on those bands if there has to be a certain spacing between them. And therefore, the number of radio stations you can have in any given city is limited.
But in San Francisco market, the frequency dial is packed. There are some, what they call second adjacency stations, which are open, which means there's a station, a blank space, a blank space, a blank space, and then a station. So that a blank space is two frequencies apart. And so those stations were recently put up for auction under an LPFM, which is a low power FM license. And these are licenses that are 100 watts below in rural and urban areas. In urban areas, there are many applicants for these licenses, and to be an applicant, you have to be a nonprofit.
We now have filed for a LPFM, which is the low power FM that the FCC has opened up for kind of micro community stations, and we're hoping that that will be approved and that we could actually get back on the terrestrial dial, not like, unfortunately, with the wattage that we once had. We have to take the little crumbs that are being given to us.
This is a 25 milliwatt, or about a 40th of a watt transmitter, and it won't go very far, maybe 100 feet. If you want to go big time, well, first of all, you have to get a license from the FCC and a much more powerful transmitter. For instance, KQED's transmitter is 110,000 watts, so it's like 4 million times more than this transmitter right here.
I think everyone's process is different. So my process is I think about it all week long. Everything I hear, everything I love, it's really a reflection of my week, to be totally selfish.
It's the ultimate mixtape. It's a love relationship that you have with music and that you want to share with people.
It's also a way for me to kind of process my week and to process kind of a communal feeling within the city. So depending on the weather outside, depending on what's been going on in my life and lives of others and also in the world around us, a radio show allows you to respond to that.
I buy a lot of records. I probably spend way too much money on records, and I just come down with whatever it is I have or whatever I've been thinking all week, because I think in music constantly, which I think a lot of us do, you know?
Being on the internet is great. I must tell you, it's great. Everybody's doing it, but the radio, to me, the radio is number one.
The differences between broadcast radio and internet radio for distribution, well, there's a lot of differences. One, FM radio or AM radio, you can just simply turn on a radio and find the station anywhere on the dial. It's much easier to reach the public.
But being on the actual dial, I think, is really important, especially for community radio, because a big mission of ours is to serve all of our community, and often the underserved portions of our community. And not everybody has access to the internet 24/7.
I definitely prefer the FM dial because I believe it's an even playing field, and I think everyone can listen and everyone can tune us in. And I remember as a kid listening to the FM radio and thinking they were superstar rock stars, and there was just something so amazing to me and magical about it.
Being online only, we've really seen the difference. Our listenership is nowhere near where it was. There is a sense of you lose a little bit of that magic. There is something to be said for those. There's something beautiful about through a transmitter, these waves of sound come out and they reach somebody who's washing dishes in their kitchen.
The transmitter takes your voice and again, it frequency modulates the signal, and it sends out a radio signal by making the electrons in this antenna vibrate up and down. And that sends out an electromagnetic wave from the transmitter that can then be picked up on a similar antenna. When that electromagnetic wave comes past this antenna, it causes the electrons in this antenna to move up and down, and then that signal is picked up inside the radio and decoded and made into sound again.
The airwaves seeping through, there's something magical about that. And hearing music and hearing people kind of, magically pop in and talking about the music, or, having that voice.
Wednesday morning, 8 to 10 a.m., Pum Pum Tones on Radio Valencia.
Homeboy on 89.5 FM.
Sleets on Hearts continues here on San Francisco Community Radio.
So one of the freedoms we have as internet broadcasters is freedom from some of the FCC regulations regarding speech.
There's less regulations when using the internet. Are there other advantages or disadvantages of having an internet radio station versus a broadcast station?
Worldwide, enormous. You can be as big as you can imagine.
We are broadcasting on the internet, and it is amazing to get an email from someone in London. We do have this crazy cult following in London that's like obsessed with KPOO, and so that's pretty awesome. What's not exciting to me about the internet is that everything has to be logged and documented, and I like the philosophy of on the radio, you missed it, you missed it. Nothing is archived, you didn't tune it in on time, you missed it.
The advantage, of course, of doing internet radio is, one, you don't have to be licensed to do it. The airwaves, the radio spectrum is very heavily regulated and guarded by the FCC.
The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission, and they govern all broadcasting in the United States.
FCC is the police for radio. Anything goes wrong and the FCC gets word of it, they will be at the station.
To me, the FCC is the man. It is the one that's holding us down and keeping us back. It is a government entity that has all the power and control and can show up and shut us down on one curse word.
Radio Valencia works a lot like in a shared art space where artists come and pay for space. So in this case, the artists are DJs.
The DJs here pay dues, and that's totally reasonable because you do a show once a week and you have a really great time. You pay a little bit of dues to have the use of all this amazing equipment, and it's fun.
Right now in 2014, funds are very, very, very hard to get now. KPOO at this particular moment is what you call a real listener-supported radio station.
If you're doing a legal online station, as we are, it's quite expensive. There's kind of a myth that online is like cheap. It is if you're pirate and you're just doing it, right? But if you're paying royalties like we are, it's quite cost prohibitive.
It's like any organization, except none of us get paid. No one gets paid. So it's like doing art.
The KPOO, a community radio station today, is very, very important. Not only for the information and news we put out that you can't hear it anywhere else, but another thing is that music. A lot of artists put out music. They can't get their music played on the radio. And KPOO is here. Actually, artists come right off the street with their maybe a CD or MP3, and we can actually play that on the air.
As a space, we are actually part of this community now, like in the Mission, and it's amazing. Like, we know our neighbors, all of them across the street, and like everyone's benefited from us growing here.
We all kind of know that when you talk about corporate radio, we now live in a culture where it's Clear Channel, Entercom, so it's these huge entities that own hundreds of stations across the country. Often there's not even a DJ in the booth. It's all pre-programmed. The playlists are recycled. And there's really no attention to the actual local community that it's serving. Then you get things like public radio and NPR, which have some really wonderful programming and a little bit of a local flavor, but often most of the programming too is getting piped in, and it's not from or by the community. And what's so special about community radio is that it's actually for and by the people of the community.
I think the world should move back towards local community radio. I think it's important for people to have pride in their community, their neighborhood, to listen and know that someone is talking directly to you.
Listen to DJ Jim G on Wax Crackle Pop as RadioValencia.fm as we're closing in final minutes on our show.
Congratulations.
And, we made another one happen.
Less talk, more music. Where are we going? Oh, I know where we're going.
All right, you're listening to the one and only KPOO San Francisco, listener-supported, non-profit, non-commercial community radio.